When signs appear that could be considered the results of an evil spell, my first advice, always, is to address the concerns to a psychiatrist. When one is ill, the first thought should be of natural causes that can be treated with traditional medicine. In fact, only rarely does an illness have a diabolical origin. Normally, one should have recourse to an exorcist only as a second response. I say this for the benefit of persons who are very impressionable. I myself do not accept anyone, except in clear cases, if I do not first have a psychiatric diagnosis. What do I mean by clear cases? For example, a long time ago, a very religious and practicing father came to see me. His 18-year-old son had come home one day and, to everyone's surprise, began to curse and destroy all the sacred images that he found around the home. The youth no longer went to church and would interrupt the prayer before meals with unheard of verbal violence. Everyone was stunned by this change. Opposition to the sacred is one of the clearest signs of evil spells, and there is no need to have a medical opinion in order to begin treatment immediately. Returning to the norm. After the person has gone to a psychiatrist, if the treatment turns out to be useless, and if medical doctors are not able to make a diagnosis because they are convinced they are facing an unknown illness, in fact, many of them cannot even imagine the existence of evil spirits, then one can turn to a priest for advice. I recall the case of Mark, a boy whom I exorcised for a long time, who was struck by an extremely strong possession. The poor boy underwent heavy psychiatric treatment, including electric shock, and a treatment for insomnia. He never slept. For an entire week, he was given enough sleep medication to sedate an elephant, but he never slept, day or night. It was only after a long spiritual cure that he was liberated from his evil. The opposite case happened to me with a woman who came to me for a blessing. She suffered from a pathology that had been treated by a neurologist for many years, and also by some exorcists, but to no advantage. After questioning her, I realized that I could proceed with an exorcism. At the beginning, she had some strong reactions and then fell down and lost consciousness. When she revived, she insisted that she wanted a true exorcism, one that began with the words, "I exorcise you." Evidently, she had already heard them during an exorcism that was done to her. After she calmed down, she complained that just touching her made her eyes hurt. These are not typical attitudes of the possessed. When she returned for the next appointment, she did not know if the exorcism had had any effect. Before dismissing her case, because I still had some doubts, I brought her to Father Candido. After putting his hand on her head, he understood that there was nothing there that concerned demons. It was a psychiatric problem. Where do you turn when you have suspicions of a demonic influence? You turn to your pastor or religious figure who has some awareness of this type of reality. In fact, it often happens that persons who experience and suffer from evil spells are treated with little patience because they are considered crazy. Before judging them, priests should simply recite a prayer or give them a blessing and see what happens. At times, such a person will immediately give obvious signs of malaise. These reactions indicate that the person must turn to an exorcist. There are also dubious cases in which the nature of the illness is not clear. Here, it is opportune for psychiatrists and exorcists to work together. Indeed, a psychiatrist may work cooperatively with an exorcist even if he is not a believer. All that is necessary is that he recognize, at least in theory, that science, at times, can do nothing. In this way, a fruitful collaboration can be established that is helpful to the person who is suffering. In practice, however, this is very rare. Let us consider one last observation about the distinction between psychiatric illness and the extraordinary influence of demons. Saint Pio of Pietrelcina was convinced that many persons who were admitted to psychiatric hospitals and remained there during their entire natural life were, in reality, possessed by demons, and an exorcism would have been enough to cure them. This is also confirmed by the great apostle of psychiatric illnesses, the Spanish Carmelite, Francis Palau. In the hospital in which he worked, he exorcised all the patients, curing many of them. This tells us something interesting. Psychiatric symptoms and diabolical symptoms assume very similar forms. Therefore, knowing how to discern the true nature of evil is decisive in resolving the problem.